Do you know what you believe in? Think about it for a moment. It's a weird question. I'll give you that. Do you know what you believe in? I'm not asking you what Ernest Holmes believes in. I'm not asking you what's in whatever you got in Sunday school or anything like that. I'm not asking for an official statement of brand recognition. Do you know what you believe? Like I said, I recognize that can be a weird question because sometimes we don't want to leave anybody out, and sometimes it can feel like, well, I don't want to put up any kind of a wall where I say, this is my thing, and if you're not into my thing, then you're wrong. We don't want to do that. I get it. We don't want to be dogmatic about it. And out of an effort to make sure that we don't leave anybody out, sometimes there's a pulling back from, well, I don't want to get around that. I don't want to be able to think about or talk about or say what I believe in. It doesn't feel right to me, And I get that. Totally fair. But on the other hand, there's that idea that if you don't stand for something, you'll fall for anything. You've heard that before. But the other thing is, if I can't say what I feel, not carved in stone, but where you're at right now, if I can't say what I feel right now, then I can't share it with anybody. Instead, I'm left with what I don't feel. I bet that most people in this room, most people watching online and so on, have had that experience of somebody goes, hey, I see that you go to church on Sunday. First of all, weird. But why do you do that? What goes on there? What do you have in your heart? What do you believe in and those kind of things? And if you can't say, this is where I'm at, all you can say is, this is where I'm not. So I'll bet you many of the people, maybe most of the people, maybe even all of the people in this room have had that experience of saying, well, it's not like this and that and the other. Well, it's not like the Catholic church I used to go to. It's not like the synagogue because of this and that and the other. And it's not like that other place. And it's not like this. Because if you can't say where you are, but you want to communicate, you end up saying what you're not. But that's not what the person asked. And it's also not helpful. Can you imagine going to a restaurant and being handed a piece of paper that has all the dishes that they do not serve? When you pass on, there's a document that you can leave behind called a will that has in it all the people that you want to take care of and leave money to and all that. We're familiar with the concept. Can you imagine instead of that? I'm going to leave a won't. And it's got a list of all the people that I do not want to give money to. It's a long list. It doesn't work that way. Can you imagine a map filled with destinations that you do not want to visit? I mean, you might get there eventually, but it takes longer. Everything is like that. In the desire to not leave anybody out, if we can't figure out where we are right now, how do we get where we want to go? There's something really beautiful about having a sense of, this is me. Let it change, let it grow, let me change, let me grow. But here's me right now. Here's what I'm all about. Here's where I'm at. You have to have a sense of that if you want to share. And I got to tell you, that sharing part is really, really important. And it's not something that I used to be very good at, I'll be honest with you. I grew up in New Thought, so I think I had this idea that it was okay. As long as I had it in between my ears, I was cool. I don't have to actually do anything about it. Yuck, I don't want to get my hands dirty. I can just think about it. Some of you know that my wife Jenny and I have been married for 29 years, which is a very long time. And I think that the illusion that people have when they ask us questions like, well, how did you do it? They ask her, how do you put up with that? But they also just say in general, what's the secret? As though there were a secret. People ask for advice and stuff like that. And I think that the illusion that people have is that we always were good at it. When that's not true. We grew together. We continue to grow together. We continue to work on this stuff. And one of the places that I just wasn't very good at the beginning was doing something about it. I think about her all day. I still think about her all day. Wasn't so good at showing what was on my mind. And so there were a lot of conversations, we'll call them conversations, where I would say the equivalent of, well, I thought about it. Well, that's not helpful, is it? And it ain't love even. It's something different. When you were a little kid, did you ever tell your parents, oh, I thought about cleaning my room? That's great. There's still socks everywhere. Officer, I thought about obeying the speed limit. Great. We're going to put some cuffs on you now. As it turns out, in a very real way, it is not the thought that counts, no matter what you said to someone who gave you a lame Christmas present. Exactly. You have to do something about it if it's going to have any kind of effect in your life. So it's about believing in something, and it's about sharing what's on your heart. That's the magic thing. And so I suppose it's natural, if you're there with me for that, I suppose it's natural to go, okay, well then, how do I know what I believe in? I'm not asking you to believe what I say. I'm not asking you to believe what's in a particular book. I'm asking you to find what's in your heart. And so the question is, well, how do I know what's in my heart? How do I know that? Is there a class? Is there a book? Is there a thing that I do? How do I know what I believe in? And it's a valid question, so thank you for asking. It turns out the answer is not very complicated. I'm going to share 2 quotes with you today. One of them comes a little bit later, but here's the one I'm going to share with you right now. It comes from one of my favorite smart people. It's a guy named Richard Iowata. He's a writer and an actor and a director and a comedian and just an all-around smart person. And he's one of those people that you see and you go, I want to be like that when I grow up. And Richard Iowata says, the expenditure of your life will reveal what is sacred to you. I'm going to say that again. The expenditure of your life will reveal what is sacred to you. In other words, what you're doing is proof of what's on your heart. It doesn't matter what you say when you're in a special place where you know you're supposed to be nice, when you got your Sunday best on, literally or figuratively. But rather, how you spend your life reveals what's going on in your heart. So if you want to know what you really believe in, pay attention to what you're doing all day. And this is really great because there's not a whole lot of even soul searching involved. You don't have to climb a mountain. You don't have to do a thing. Just watch what you're up to all day long, and it will tell you what the spiritual center of gravity is for you. And here's the formula. It's an easy formula. Watch what you do. If you like what you see, do more of that. If you don't, quit it. Do something different. That's the whole thing. That really is the whole thing. It's magical if you just do that. Not complicated. But I want to share with you that represents a real change for me personally. Maybe for other people too. Because I grew up with the idea that ministers aren't supposed to tell people to do stuff. And there's good reason for that. I think we've all been in a situation where it's like, okay, church always tells me what to do, and I'm sick of it. It's weird. You turn on the television, some religious channel, and you'll hear somebody telling you what to do, and it feels funny. I get it. I understand that. But first of all, I want to be very clear. I'm not telling you what to do. I'm just telling you to do something. The simple formula is if you want your life to be better, go do a thing. But I'm not here to tell you what the thing is. That's an important difference, right? But I think that there's been an overcorrection in the world of, let's say, progressive spirituality, where we go, you know what, we don't want to be like those people at all, so we're just going to say, don't tell people to do things at all. Take action off the menu. That was my training, to be honest. And it sounds okay in a way because it's safe, but you know what safe is not? Fun. You know what safe is not? Helpful. You know what safe is not? Love. I think that it's important to remember that at the beginning of any spiritual tradition, the hero or the guru or the wise person or the whatever you want to call it is always telling people, go do stuff. You know, my guy, JC, in the Beatitudes, he says, go do things. Blessed are the peacemakers. In other words, go make some peace. He doesn't tell you what peace looks like. He doesn't tell you how to find it. He says, go make some peace. Over and over again, in there's no statement about what to believe, but there's a lot of statements about go do stuff. That's interesting. I don't know how over time that got shifted. Don't really care, frankly. But somewhere along the line, I think that we got the idea that spirituality is about holding still. You know, when you say, imagine a spiritual person. A lot of times there's this vision of someone sitting far away, removed from everything, on a mountaintop with a special outfit, who's far away from everybody else, and who is just kind of looking down at the world with maybe a smug look on their face, frankly. For a lot of people, if I say imagine a guru or a mystic wise person or whatever, the image is someone removed, someone quiet, someone sitting still. And I get that. And yet I don't get that. You know what I mean? Because think about it with me. If love is the name of the game, if love is what it's all about, ask yourself, if you were to visualize someone sitting still, not doing anything, not sharing anything, if you want to get something from them, you got to know the secret handshake, special words, a certain amount of money in the basket, whatever. Imagine someone withdrawn like that. Have that mental image? Now imagine someone else interacting with life, doing stuff, feeding people who are hungry, laughing really loud, dancing, hugging, that kind of thing. Which one of those two people looks more like love, and which one of those people looks more like fear? So maybe we need to reevaluate where action fits in to our concept of spirituality. If you want your life to be better, go do a thing. Because look, I'm a big fan of theology, even though there has been some toxic theology, limiting theology, exclusive theology. There's also been wonderful, uplifting, beautiful theology. I have a degree in theology. I love it. I'll talk about it all day long. But at its best, theology is like a love song. And there ain't nothing wrong with a love song. But it's not the same thing as love. You want your life to be better. Go do something, feel something, engage with that feeling, watch what happens, rinse, repeat. And like I said, I recognize that that represents a change for a lot of people. I think that culturally, sometimes we have a fear of doing stuff. You know what I mean? I think that there's a fear of maybe being wrong. When you think about every television commercial you ever saw, it starts out by saying, you're doing this wrong. You need to buy my thing, subscribe to my thing, watch my videos, like, subscribe, and share. If you don't want to be wrong anymore, you got to buy my stuff. And so there's so much fear of being wrong that people don't engage. And you see it in commercials, and you see it in business. You see it a lot in religion, frankly. You started out as a miserable sinner. You are wrong, and you need to come to me to get a little bit of rightness. Yuck. I get it, you know? And I think for a lot of people, there's so much fear in doing it the wrong way that they just don't want to do anything. I get it. But in the absence of action, all we have left is consumption. So we look at our phones, so we look at the television, we look at commercials, we look at whatever, and we wait for our turn to order. You know? In the absence of action, all we have left is consumption. So we consume things, we consume data. Ultimately, we consume ourselves. And nothing really happens. But is that what this is all about? Is that what love is about? Is that what this thing is about? I know that there's a desire to go forward, to make something, to do something. So how do we put those together? If you look at the history of innovation, when people have invented products or revolutionized things, come out with new ideas, changed things, it's very rare that they're thinking about consumption. It's very rare that anybody did anything cool, worthwhile, interesting, revolutionary. It's very rare that anybody did anything good by thinking, what am I going to get out of this? How am I going to get people to pay attention? How am I going to get more eyeballs? How am I going to get more likes and shares? How am I going to get more money, more approval, more validation? Those kinds of questions end in disappointment. Because it's not about what you get out of something, it's about something different. The stories of real innovation are the stories of someone fixing something that's broken. The quintessential story of this, there are millions of other stories, but the story that I think about is the story of Steve Jobs saying, okay, guys, talking to his engineers and designers and whoever else, how do we fix smartphones? What's wrong with them? How do we make it better? That was the conversation. And now most of the people in this room either have an iPhone or something that was inspired by an iPhone. That's the way that this works. And I'm not telling you that because I want you to go out and invent a product. This isn't a motivational speech like that. But I am telling you that because the secret to all of this is a very simple one. People say, okay, I'm supposed to do something. I get it. Go do a thing. Okay, enough. What do I do? I don't know the will of God. That seems like a big thing. And it is a big thing, frankly. We can speak in generalities. God's will for you is love and good and growth and all of that. That's cool. But as far as specifics, I can't answer that. And anybody who says they can answer the specifics will of God for you is selling you something. I don't know the will of God, but here's what I do know. I know what's broken in my life. And if innovation comes from fixing a problem, maybe we can start to figure out what we need to do next. You don't need to know the big picture. There is something in your life that could use a little bit of TLC. There's something in your life that you could lean into, that you can make a little bit better. Go do that. That's all. You don't have to know the whole thing. Just fix the one broken thing. Make it a little bit better. Watch what happens. Listen to your heart. Rinse and repeat. And here's the most important step. You must agree with the healing. You must agree with the healing. Because here's the thing. Absolutely zero of this happens against your will. I know there's like a romantic idea that God is going to just make you be good. And in fact, sometimes people pray that prayer. God, will you please just make me good? Make me fixed. Well, you're already good. So that's a weird prayer, praying for something you already had. You could have gone home the whole time, Dorothy. You know? This doesn't happen against your will. And so if you want it to happen, you must agree with the healing in action. And so what that means is if you want, for example, love, you must be loving. Agree with it, with your action. And you're not allowed to do things that are hateful anymore. You want healing and wholeness? Well, that means that you must agree with the healing and wholeness and stop doing things that are destructive and stop talking about yourself that way that makes everybody else roll their eyes when you're negative. You must agree with your healing. Take it and make it a part of you. And watch what happens. And like I said before, that's not something that I started out really understanding. It's certainly not something that I started out being good at even. Because for me, at the early part of my spiritual journey, I had what I'm going to call a pharmaceutical approach to God. You know what I mean? I'm going to go get me some more God when I need it. This doesn't feel good, so I'm going to take 2 prayers and call me in the morning kind of a thing. When I didn't feel good, I would go to somebody I respected and ask them to pray with me, which is beautiful, but it's not everything. I'd get myself on a list. I'd go do the thing. Great, but it didn't change me. I would let myself stay the same. And it wasn't any different than just going to the medicine cabinet. I'm not asking for change. I just want you to scratch the itch. Well, look, guys, you know just as well as I do that the reason you have a headache is not because you have an aspirin deficiency. That there's something inside that needs to be looked at. There's change that needs to happen. And so instead of a pharmaceutical approach, I realized that, yeah, it worked, but it didn't get me anywhere. It worked. I would fix the thing that was fixed kind of, but I never changed. And then I read a book called Method in Theology, and the author of the book said, religious conversion, which is a funny term. But he's saying, you know you did it. You know you're in, let's say. It's part of you. It's in your heart. Religious conversion is a matter of, he says, an otherworldly falling in love. And I realized that going to the medicine cabinet isn't the same thing as love. That when you love something, that feeling, that emotion, that sharing, that growth, that whole thing is in your bones. It's not something you go get. It's something that you are. Something that you feel. So at the beginning of this, I asked you what you believe in, but instead of that, maybe the real question is, well, what do you feel? What do you feel? I told you I was going to give you 2 quotes today. Here's the second one. Are you ready? There are no unexperienced understandings. I'm going to say that again. There are no unexperienced understandings. In other words, you don't know a thing until you feel it. Maybe you read the book, that's cool. Maybe you wrote the book report, that's cool. Maybe you got good grades, that's cool. Maybe you can tell people the thing that you know you're supposed to say because you saw it on Instagram. Cool. But you don't know it until you feel it. So what do you feel? And more importantly even, what are you going to do about what's in your heart? When I tell people that I'm a minister, I get a lot of eye rolls. I get a lot of things, frankly. But one of the things that people say to me when I tell them that spirituality, that the religious calling, that this is a part of my life, one of the things that people say to me, unprompted, is something like, well, I just don't understand how God, if there was a God, I don't understand how God could allow all of these things to happen in the world. And you've heard that one before, I'm sure, because you're a weird person who comes to church too. And I get it. It's a valid question. But it presupposes that God is a guy up in the sky somewhere like Santa who sees you when you're sleeping, he knows when you're awake, and is looking at us all like we're on a game board or something. And frankly, I don't believe in that kind of God. That doesn't make sense to me. What I know is that God is not far away, but rather here. And you know that too, don't you? God has no hands but yours and mine. That's how this works. You are the place, as the song says, where God shows up. So the question that I have for myself is not how can God allow this thing to happen, but rather, what am I doing to change it? And I'm not asking anybody to go cure cancer. I'm not asking anybody to feed all of the homeless people. I'm not asking anybody to fix everything. But I am saying there is something you can do today that will help. That's your job. There's something you can do to make it just a little bit better. There's a hug you can give, a compliment you can pay, a place you can go to make it better. That is your job. It's not a matter of how does God allow this. It's a matter of what can I do to change it. Or to quote the gospel of Elvis Presley, a little less conversation, a little more action. Okay, that was all introduction. Here's the actual talk. You ready? It's quick. If God is here, if Spirit is here, if the thing is here, if I want to experience that, my job is to eliminate distance in my thinking and in my life. Right? That makes sense. You can't have oneness with an idea of two-ness, duality, right? You can't have it both ways. So what can we do to minimize the distance? Here's what I want you to do. I broke my own rule. I'm going to tell you something I want you to do. Deal with it. Stop sending people love. Ooh. But I like saying, I'm sending you love. I know you're going through a hard time. I'm sending you love. I get it. You mean well. We all mean well when we say it. But I want you to do me a favor just for a week. Stop saying that. Try it out. See how it feels. Because here's the thing. If I'm sending you something, it means you don't have it. It means I got something that you don't have. If I send you a pizza, you don't have a pizza. I'm the master of pizza. Weird metaphor, but maybe I'm hungry. If I send you something, it implies levels of duality because I have something you don't have. You need something that only I can give. Yuck. You can't have oneness with an attitude of duality. Stop sending people love and just love them. Bless you. Try that. Don't say I'm sending you love. Say this. It's a complicated phrase. Maybe you've not heard it before. Don't say I'm sending you love. Say, I love you. Watch what happens. God has no hands but yours. There's no distance but what we allow. So let's stop allowing it. And let's start setting ourselves free. Because after all, freedom is a choice. Thank you.